The calm before the storm. In the vast expanse of space, where stars flickered like distant memories, Commander Zorov stood atop the observation deck of Outpost Alpha Prime. His sleek, metallic body glimmered under the artificial lights that mimicked the celestial glow outside. Zorov was proud. The Frez Imperium had dominated this sector for years, pushing back human forces with relentless efficiency. He surveyed the battlefield below, a desolate landscape scarred by previous conflicts, littered with remnants of human technology that had once posed a threat but now lay in ruins. Another glorious day for us, he chittered to his second-in-command, Frez Kylos, who stood beside him with an air of eager anticipation. "How many waves did we repel today?" "3 waves, Commander," Kylos replied, his voice tinged with amusement, "each more pitiful than the last. They persist in hurling themselves against our barriers as if sheer stubbornness could overcome our superior technology." Zorov allowed himself a moment of smug satisfaction. The humans had tried to breach this sector for months, but their efforts were futile against the advanced energy barriers that protected them. It was almost comical watching these tall, soft-bodied creatures scurry across the battlefield like insects, only to be vaporized by plasma cannons or disintegrated against impenetrable shields. As night descended and stars twinkled above like diamonds scattered on velvet, Zorov retreated to his command pod. He relaxed slightly in the nutrient mist that filled his chamber, allowing himself to bask in thoughts of victory. Tomorrow would bring more assaults, more opportunities to showcase Frez's superiority over these primitive beings. Yet, amid his reverie, a stray thought flickered through his mind. Despite their technological inferiority, humans have proven surprisingly resilient. Time and again, they adapted their strategies and invented new weapons that challenged even the most advanced defenses. But Zorov quickly dismissed this notion. No amount of human ingenuity could stand against the might of the Frez Imperium. The following day began like any other, until it didn't. Reports began flooding in from various outposts about strange occurrences on the battlefield. "Commander," Frez Kylos announced one morning, with urgency lacing his tone, "we have received fragmented transmissions from Outpost Epsilon 12. "What is it?" Zorov asked sharply. "They're under attack," Kylos continued breathlessly. "But something's different. They report that humans are using bladed weapons, swords." A ripple of laughter erupted in the command center at this absurdity. Zorov himself felt amusement bubbling within him at such a ridiculous notion. Swords against energy barriers. Surely this was some kind of joke. Yet as days passed and similar reports trickled in from other fronts, each echoing tales of humans wielding archaic melee weapons, the initial laughter faded into confusion. "Preposterous," Zorov muttered during a strategy session with his officers. "Next you'll tell me they're training attack trees or some such nonsense." Despite his bravado, unease began to creep into Zorov's mind like shadows at dusk. Perhaps he should not dismiss these reports so quickly. After all, humans had proven unpredictable before. As if confirming his worst fears, a transmission crackled through from Outpost Gamma 7, the nearest Frez stronghold. "This is Gamma 7. We are under attack. The humans have breached our perimeter. They are inside. How are they doing this? They're cutting through our troops with swords. We need reinforcements." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving stunned silence in its wake. For the first time in his career, Zorov felt fear, a cold sensation that seeped through his hardened shell into his core. "Battle stations," he heard himself shout, though it felt surreal, as if someone else was commanding his body. "Prepare for imminent attack. Tell High Command. Tell them the humans are coming, and this time they have swords." As alarms blared throughout Outpost Alpha Prime, Zorov stared out at the starfield beyond, his heart racing with dread of what was coming. Whatever awaited them would challenge everything he believed about warfare and superiority. The sky above erupted into chaos as human ships breached their atmosphere. Smaller but heavily armored craft descended rapidly toward the surface with surprising agility. They landed just outside their main defensive barriers and began unloading their cargo with military precision. Zoroth magnified the display on his console and gasped at what he saw: armored figures emerging from those ships wielding actual metallic blades, glinting ominously under the harsh light of distant stars. "This is madness," Kylos exclaimed beside him as disbelief washed over everyone present. "Activate primary barriers." Zoroth ordered sharply, trying to regain control over his rising panic. "Let's show these primitives the folly of bringing blades to an energy fight." The massive energy field sprang to life, a shimmering wall that had repelled countless assaults before. But then something impossible happened. Instead of being vaporized upon contact, these armored figures charged forward through the barrier as if it were nothing. Zoroth's mind raced. How could this be? His soldiers watched in horror as humans closed in on them wielding swords that cut through armor like paper. Panic erupted among Frey's ranks as they realized they were woefully unprepared for close combat against these fierce warriors who fought not just with weapons, but with sheer willpower and determination. "Fall back!" Zoroth shouted desperately, though even he knew it was too late. Their defenses crumbled before them like dust blown away by a storm. In that moment of chaos and despair, Zoroth faced an unsettling truth. Perhaps it was not just technology, but also spirit that defined true strength in warfare, a realization that would haunt him long after this battle ended. The first encounter. As the dust settled from the chaos of the initial assault, Commander Zoroth struggled to regain his composure. The once proud defenses of Outpost Alpha Prime lay in tatters, and the echoes of battle still reverberated through the command center. The humans, armed with their ancient swords, had proven themselves a formidable adversary. Zoroth could hardly believe it. He had underestimated them, and now he was paying the price. A new strategy. In the aftermath of the clash, Zoroth gathered his remaining officers in a dimly lit war room. The atmosphere was thick with tension as they reviewed the damage reports. Frez Dexol, his second in command, stood beside him, his shell still vibrating with agitation. "Commander," Dexol began cautiously, "we need to reassess our strategy. The humans are not fighting as we anticipated. They've adapted quickly and are using their primitive weapons effectively." Zoroth nodded slowly, his mind racing. "We cannot allow this to continue. We must find a way to counter their tactics." He glanced at the holographic display flickering before them, showing images of human warriors clad in heavy armor, wielding swords that had cut through their ranks like butter. "They're using their history against us," Zoroth mused aloud. "These weapons may be old, but they carry the weight of human tradition, of survival. We must not only fight them, but understand what drives them." The human perspective. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, Sarah stood among her fellow fighters at a makeshift camp just outside the ruins of Outpost Alpha Prime. She was a warrior forged in the fires of desperation and hope. The recent victories had ignited a flame within her, a belief that humanity could reclaim its place in this war. "Listen up," Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the murmur of her comrades. "We've faced overwhelming odds before, and we've come out stronger every time. Today, we stand not just for ourselves, but for every soul who has suffered under alien oppression." Her words resonated deeply among her fellow warriors. They were not merely fighting for survival, they were fighting for their identity, their history. Sarah had spent countless hours studying ancient texts and combat techniques, drawing inspiration from humanity's past to forge a new path forward. A surprise attack. As night fell over the battlefield, both sides prepared for what was to come. Zorov ordered his remaining forces to regroup and fortify their defenses, while Sarah strategized with her team about how to capitalize on their recent success. Tomorrow, Sarah declared with determination, we will launch a surprise attack on their command center. They think they can intimidate us with their technology, but we will show them that human spirit cannot be extinguished by fear or advanced weaponry. The following day dawned with an eerie calmness that belied the storm brewing beneath its surface. Zorov's forces were still reeling from the previous night's battle when Sarah's warriors struck like lightning. The humans charged forward with unexpected ferocity, swords gleaming under the sun as they breached the outer defenses once again. Zorov watched in disbelief as his soldiers faltered against this wave of determined fighters. The clashing forces. The battle raged fiercely as humans clashed against Frez soldiers. Zorov found himself at the forefront of the chaos, witnessing firsthand the tenacity of these warriors who fought not just with weapons, but with sheer willpower. "Regroup! Hold your lines!" he shouted desperately as he swung his own weapon, a plasma blade, against an advancing human warrior. But even as he fought valiantly, he could sense that something fundamental was shifting in this conflict. Sarah moved fluidly through the battlefield, her sword cutting down enemies with precision and grace. Each swing was fueled by memories of those who had fallen before her, friends and family lost to alien aggression. With every victory she claimed on this battlefield, she felt their spirits guiding her. A moment of realization. In a moment that felt suspended in time, Zorov found himself face to face with Sarah amidst the chaos of battle. Their eyes locked for an instant, two leaders from opposing sides caught in a whirlwind of conflict and fate. In that fleeting moment, Zorov realized that this war was no longer just about territory or resources. It was about identity and survival for both species. He saw in Sarah's eyes not just defiance, but also hope, a hope that resonated deeply within him despite his resolve to crush it. "Why do you fight?" Zorov shouted over the din of battle as they exchanged blows. "For our future," Sarah replied fiercely, parrying his strike and countering with one of her own. Zorov felt something shift within him, a crack in his unwavering belief in Frez superiority. These humans were not merely insects to be crushed. They were warriors fighting for their existence. The turning point. As the battle continued to unfold around them, Zorov began to understand that underestimating humanity would lead to his downfall. The tide was turning. He could feel it in every clash of metal against metal and every cry of defiance echoing across the battlefield. "Fall back. Regroup at secondary defenses," he ordered through gritted mandibles as panic began to spread among his troops. But it was too late. The humans surged forward like a tidal wave, pushing through their ranks with relentless determination. The once mighty Frez soldiers found themselves overwhelmed by sheer numbers and unyielding spirit. Zorov watched helplessly as chaos engulfed his command center, the very heart of Frez operations now teetering on collapse. The realization hit him hard. This war would not be won simply through technological superiority. It required understanding and respect for one's enemy. A new dawn. As dusk settled over the battlefield once more, both sides reeled from losses incurred during this brutal encounter. Zorov retreated back into his command pod, haunted by visions of Sarah's fierce resolve, an image that would linger long after this day ended. Meanwhile, Sarah stood among her fellow warriors, exhausted yet exhilarated by their hard-fought victory. They had shown not only themselves, but also their alien adversaries what humanity was capable of when pushed against a wall. "We have proven ourselves today," she declared passionately to her comrades gathered around her campfire beneath a canopy of stars twinkling above like distant dreams waiting to be realized. But even amidst celebration lay uncertainty. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as both sides prepared for what lay ahead. a conflict that would test not just their strength, but also their very understanding of what it meant to fight for survival in an unforgiving universe. With each passing moment in this interstellar conflict between humans and aliens alike, one thing became increasingly clear. Victory would not come easily nor without sacrifice, but perhaps together they could forge a path toward understanding rather than destruction. If only they dared to try. The human strategy. As the sun rose over the battlefield, casting a golden hue across the remnants of Outpost Alpha Prime, Sarah and her fellow warriors gathered to strategize their next move. The previous day's victory had ignited a fire within them, but they knew that their fight was far from over. The Frez Imperium was a formidable opponent, and they would not back down easily. A new dawn. Sarah stood at the center of the makeshift command circle, her heart pounding with determination. Around her were men and women who had lost everything to the alien invaders, friends, family, homes. They had come together not just as soldiers, but as a united front against oppression. Today, we reclaim what is ours, Sarah declared, her voice steady and resolute. The Frez think they can intimidate us with their technology, but we have something they don't, our spirit and our history. Their words resonated deeply with her comrades. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their identity as humans. Sarah had spent countless hours studying ancient combat techniques, drawing inspiration from humanity's past to forge a new path forward. Reviving ancient techniques. In a nearby tent, Sarah had laid out an array of swords and shields, each one a testament to human resilience. These weapons were not just tools of war. They were symbols of a time when humanity faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious. We may be outgunned, she continued, gesturing to the weapons before them, but we are not outmatched. Our ancestors fought with these weapons against overwhelming forces and won. It's time we do the same. The warriors nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with renewed hope. They began to practice their formations, swinging swords and raising shields in unison, each movement echoing the battles of old. Gathering intelligence, meanwhile, Zoroth was grappling with the aftermath of the previous day's battle. The Frez Imperium had never faced such an unexpected challenge before. As he surveyed the damage done to his forces, he felt a growing sense of urgency. "Commander," Frez Dexel said cautiously as he entered Zoroth's command pod, "we need to gather intelligence on these humans. Their tactics have changed dramatically." Zoroth nodded, his mind racing. "We underestimated them once. We cannot afford to do so again. Increase surveillance on all human movements." As the Frez prepared for another confrontation, Sarah and her warriors continued to refine their strategies. They knew that they needed to exploit every advantage they could find. The element of surprise. One evening, as they gathered around a flickering campfire under a blanket of stars, Sarah proposed an audacious plan. What if we create diversions? We can draw their attention away from our main force while others strike at their weak points. Her comrades exchanged glances filled with excitement and trepidation. "It's risky," one warrior remarked. If we fail, Sarah interrupted firmly, "we will go down fighting for our freedom. We cannot let fear dictate our actions any longer." With renewed resolve, they began crafting their plan, a series of feints and distractions designed to confuse the Frez forces while allowing their main assault team to penetrate deeper into enemy territory. Training for battle days turned into weeks as the humans honed their skills and prepared for what would be one of the most critical battles of their lives. Under Sarah's leadership, they practiced relentlessly. Swordplay became second nature as they learned to fight not just as individuals but as a cohesive unit. Each warrior embraced their role in this newfound strategy. Some became skilled at creating distractions, while others focused on close combat techniques that would allow them to engage the Frez effectively. As they trained, stories circulated among them, tales of bravery from humanity's past that inspired them further. They spoke of great battles fought long ago when warriors wielded swords against overwhelming odds and emerged victorious against all expectations. The night before battle, on the eve of battle, Sarah gathered her warriors once more around the campfire. The atmosphere was tense yet charged with anticipation. "Tomorrow," she said softly but firmly, "we will face our greatest challenge yet. But remember this, we fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who has suffered at the hands of these invaders." Her words ignited a spark within each warrior present. They felt connected by purpose and shared history, a bond that transcended fear. As night fell over the battlefield once more, each warrior took a moment to reflect on what lay ahead. Some whispered prayers, while others simply closed their eyes and envisioned victory. The dawn of reckoning. When dawn broke over Outpost Alpha Prime again, it brought with it an air of determination that hung thick in the atmosphere like morning mist. The humans prepared themselves for battle, each warrior clad in armor adorned with symbols representing their families and fallen comrades. Meanwhile, Zoroth stood at his command center once more, surveying his forces with renewed focus. He could feel tension crackling through the air. The anticipation of conflict was palpable. "Prepare for engagement," Zoroth commanded as alarms blared throughout Outpost Alpha Prime once more. As both sides readied themselves for what would become a defining moment in this interstellar conflict, two worlds collided, one fueled by technological superiority and another driven by unyielding spirit and determination. The battle begins. The clash began with an explosion that shook the ground beneath them, a signal that echoed across both sides as humans surged forward like a tidal wave against their alien foes. Sarah led her warriors into battle with fierce determination. Swords gleamed in sunlight as they charged toward Frey's ranks, who stood ready but uncertain after witnessing human resilience firsthand. Zoroth watched from above as chaos erupted below. A whirlwind of clashing metal and cries filled his ears while he struggled to maintain control over his forces amidst growing panic. "Hold your lines," he shouted desperately as he felt uncertainty creeping into his mind once more. This was not how it was supposed to go. But no amount of commanding could quell the tide that surged forward. The humans pressed on relentlessly against all odds, fueled by desperation and hope. A turning point. In that moment of chaos amidst clashing swords and desperate cries for survival, something shifted within Zoroth's hardened exterior. Perhaps there was more at stake than mere conquest after all. As he witnessed human warriors fighting valiantly against overwhelming odds, a flicker of respect ignited within him despite himself, a realization that perhaps this conflict held deeper meaning than victory alone. And so began another chapter in this epic struggle between two species, one armed with advanced technology seeking domination, while another wielded ancient weapons fueled by indomitable spirit, ready to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. With each clash reverberating through time itself, the outcome remained uncertain. But one thing was clear. This war would change everything, forever. Clash of cultures. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, both the human and Frey's forces braced themselves for what would become a pivotal moment in their conflict. The air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of anticipation hanging over the warriors on both sides. Sarah, leading her human contingent, felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily upon her shoulders. This battle was not just about survival. It was a testament to humanity's spirit and resilience. The human charge. With a fierce battle cry, Sarah rallied her troops. "Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for our families and friends who have suffered at the hands of these invaders. We are warriors of humanity, and we will show them the strength of our resolve." The humans surged forward, swords glinting in the fading light as they charged toward the Frez ranks. Each warrior felt a surge of adrenaline as they moved as one cohesive unit, their training and newfound strategies guiding their every action. They had come to understand that they were not merely fighting against an alien force, but were reclaiming their identity as defenders of Earth. As they closed in on the Frez soldiers, Sarah could see the shock on their faces. The aliens had never expected such a bold and organized assault. The humans were no longer just desperate survivors. They had evolved into a formidable fighting force. Frez's response. Zoroff stood at the forefront of his command center, watching in disbelief as his forces struggled to adapt to this new wave of human aggression. "Hold your lines," he shouted, trying to instill some semblance of order among his troops. But panic was beginning to seep into their ranks. The humans pressed forward with relentless determination, cutting down alien soldiers with precision strikes. Zoroff felt a knot tighten in his chest. This was not how it was supposed to go. He had believed that technology would ensure their victory, but now he faced an enemy fueled by something far more powerful: hope. "Activate secondary defenses." Zoroff barked, desperation creeping into his voice. "We must regroup." A battle unfolds. The clash between humans and Frez soldiers echoed across the battlefield, a cacophony of metal meeting metal, punctuated by shouts of defiance and cries of pain. For every alien soldier that fell, it seemed another human warrior rose to take their place. The tide was turning, and Zoroff could feel it slipping through his fingers like sand. Sarah fought valiantly at the front lines, her sword slicing through alien armor with newfound strength. Each victory, she claimed, fueled her resolve further. She was not just fighting for herself, but for all those who had come before her, those who had suffered under alien oppression. "Push forward," she yelled to her comrades as they advanced deeper into enemy territory. "We can't stop now." The turning point. As the battle raged on, Zoroff realized that he needed to change tactics if he hoped to regain control over his forces. He called for an emergency meeting with his remaining officers. "We cannot allow these humans to gain any more ground," he stated firmly. "We must adapt our strategies, use our technology to its fullest potential." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. The humans had proven themselves unpredictable time and again. They were learning from each encounter and evolving in ways he had never anticipated. "Commander," Frez Dexel interjected cautiously, "we must also consider that their morale is high right now. If we don't strike back decisively." Zoroff cut him off with a wave of his appendage. "We will strike back. Prepare our heavy artillery. We cannot let this opportunity slip away." A new strategy. Back on the battlefield, Sarah sensed a shift in the atmosphere as she rallied her troops for another push. They had gained significant ground, but she knew that victory was still uncertain. "Stay focused," she shouted over the din of battle. "We've come too far to back down now. Remember why we fight." Her words resonated deeply with her comrades as they charged forward once more, this time with renewed vigor and determination. But just as they reached what seemed like a breaking point against the Frez defenses, Zoroff unleashed his heavy artillery upon them, a barrage of energy blasts that lit up the sky like fireworks. Chaos erupts. The explosion sent shockwaves through the battlefield as humans scrambled for cover amidst the chaos. Sarah felt her heart race. This was unlike anything they had faced before. "Fall back," she yelled desperately as she watched fellow warriors fall around her under the relentless assault. But even in retreat, hope flickered within her heart, a belief that they could still turn this battle around if they regrouped and strategized once more. A moment of reflection. As night fell over the battlefield once more, both sides faced staggering losses. Zoroff retreated to his command pod, feeling an unfamiliar weight settle upon him, a mix of pride in his soldiers and fear for what lay ahead. He couldn't shake off the image of Sarah's fierce determination, the way she led her warriors into battle without hesitation or fear. It was a sight that both inspired and unnerved him. Meanwhile, Sarah gathered her remaining warriors around a flickering campfire beneath a canopy of stars twinkling above like distant dreams waiting to be realized. "We may have lost ground today," she said softly yet firmly, "but we have shown them what we are capable of. Tomorrow is another day, a chance for us to rise again." Preparing for tomorrow. As dawn approached once more over Outpost Alpha Prime, the promise of a new day brought renewed hope and determination among both sides, preparing for what lay ahead. The stakes were higher than ever before. Zorath knew that tomorrow would be crucial. He needed to find a way not only to regain control over his forces, but also to understand this new enemy who fought with such tenacity and resolve. And so began another chapter in this epic struggle between two species, one armed with advanced technology seeking domination, while another wielded ancient weapons, fueled by indomitable spirit, ready to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. With each passing moment in this interstellar conflict between humans and aliens alike, one thing became increasingly clear. Victory would not come easily nor without sacrifice, but perhaps together they could forge a path toward understanding rather than destruction, if only they dared to try. And so they prepared, for tomorrow would bring new challenges that would test not just their strength, but also their very understanding of what it meant to fight for survival in an unforgiving universe.